Good day, everyone. I'm Dr. Hu from the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. Today, we are going to study Chinese medicine. A few years ago, in 2020, just before COVID-19, I recorded the full volume of Chinese medicine study. After 5 years, I realized I should record a new version of Chinese medicine study to present a more comprehensive Chinese medicine in details. So today is the start of the new 2025 version of the series of lectures. So in this lecture, we're going to study the history of Chinese medicine from this study. I hope we can answer at least 2 questions. Firstly, what makes Chinese medicine unique? Secondly, why is it important to study the history of Chinese medicine? Firstly, let's talk about the definition. The definition of traditional medicine and complementary medicine. This is actually from the World Health Organization. It defines different categories of traditional medicine and complementary medicine. Complementary medicine refers to a broad set of healthcare practices that are not part of the country's old tradition or conventional medicine and are not fully integrated into the dominant healthcare system. So from the definition, you can see that although Chinese medicine have an extremely long history of thousands of years written records, but Chinese medicine belongs to traditional medicine in China, but when Chinese medicine comes to South Africa, it falls under the category of complementary medicine. The reason why we need to clarify the definition here is because we are in Africa. African countries, they have itself old tradition. They have African medicine or traditional healers. So we need to clarify the difference between Chinese medicine and traditional healers, or African medicine, in other words. The reason is because there is a significant difference between these two. One of the key components, the key difference is Chinese medicine excludes religions. Chinese medicine, there's no spiritual or religious perspectives in Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine will only focus on diseases, health, no religions, no spiritual perspectives. So that's why we need to understand the different categories of traditional medicine and complementary medicine, because sometimes patients from the public, they misunderstood because we also have a long history, so sometimes they misunderstood that we are all the same. COVID-19 pandemic. In the past few years, we experienced COVID-19 pandemic, and from the initial outbreak of COVID-19, the Chinese government implements Chinese medicine treatments on COVID-19 patients. For example, when the Wuhan Municipal Health Commission announced the outbreak of COVID-19, the Chinese government implements Chinese herbal medicine treatments for COVID patients, and the prescription of pneumonia #1 is the title of the prescription for COVID-19. It's effective in treating mild cases of COVID-19. And among those years, there are a lot of studies, a lot of research, evidence-based researches that can prove Chinese medicine can be used in frontline diseases, in emergency, in pandemics, for instance. These are some of the studies. In the treatment of COVID-19, Chinese medicine can significantly improve the effective rate, reduce the rate of severe diseases, shorten the disappearance of time of fever and cough, as well as the hospital stay of patients. Also, the systematic review findings summarize that Chinese medicine is more effective and safe as an adjunctive treatment for patients with COVID-19. So these are all the evidence and also all the from research. There's another study in pharmacology research. In general, the systematic review and meta-analysis suggests Chinese herbal medicine may be beneficial for the treatment of COVID-19 in improving clinical symptoms, imaging, and laboratory indicators, shorten the course of disease, and reduce the number of severe cases. So from here, you will see although Chinese medicine is a traditional medicine, have extremely long history, thousands of years of constant practice, more than 2,000 years written records, continuous written records, we still are the first-line medicine that can be used for the diseases, the new diseases, critical diseases, and common diseases. The next story I want to share with you is malaria. Especially we are in Africa, malaria is a life-threatening disease caused by parasites that are transmitted to people through the bites of infected mosquito. It kills millions of lives all over the world. If you are not sure if you know or have paid attention to this story, Nobel Prize in 2015. In 2015, the Nobel Prize were awarded to a Chinese lady, Dr. Tu Youyou. Tu is the surname, Youyou is her name. Dr. Tu born on 13th of December 1930. She's a Chinese pharmacist or pharmaceutical chemist and educator. Due to her contribution in discovery of artemisinin in treating malaria, she was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2015. Interesting enough, Dr. Tu, she meant to be related to malaria. The reason is because her name Youyou. Youyou is actually a very traditional word in Chinese literature. This word is from Shi Jing, also were written a few thousand years ago. It describes an image that's Youyou described as a deer when a deer eats a plant. A deer in the wild, when the deer eating the plants, the sounds when the deer eating the plants, we call Youyou. So in Chinese it says Youyou Lu Ming, means Youyou, the deer, the noise from the deer when eating the plants. And that plant is actually sweet wormwood. You see why I says this should mean to relate it to malaria, because the artemisinin, where does artemisinin comes from, is sweet wormwood. So let's see one news.
She's an 84-year-old scientist who almost half a century ago was called by Chairman Mao to be part of a secret military project during the Vietnam War. Now, Dr. Tu Youyou has become the first Chinese person to win a Nobel Prize for Science. Her success? Saving the lives of millions by using ancient herbs to create a drug to combat malaria. This demonstrates we have a precious wealth from our ancient times, she said after winning the award. Just as the late Chairman Mao said, traditional Chinese medicine is a treasure vault. Her research began when the North Vietnamese appealed to China for help to protect soldiers from malaria. So many were becoming ill, it was compromising their fight against the Americans. Using writings from 1600 years earlier, called the Handbook of Prescriptions for Emergency Treatment, she found her solution. For those who have sought to have Chinese medicine integrated into Western society, the Nobel Prize marks a proud day for practitioners.
It's like awakening sort of a call to the people. Here, there's something in Chinese medicine can be as powerful, as good as any drugs, and or even better and safer and cheaper for conquer this kind of many of the illness in the world.
This is what Artemisia looks like in its raw form. Dr. Tu boiled it up into a tea and then gave it to mice and monkeys. It was 100% successful. But of course, at that point, it hadn't been tested on humans. And so she tried it herself. The active ingredient she discovered is now available in tablet and injection form.
Each year, unfortunately, about 500,000 people die of malaria, but it would be probably nearer 1 million people if it wasn't for the widespread use of this effective malaria drug.
Alfred Nobel wished those who had brought the greatest benefit to mankind to be recognised. Tu Youyao has that recognition now from those who granted her the award and those whose lives she has protected. Emma Murphy, ITV News.
So this is just a story from the interview of Dr. Tu Youyao. And from the interview, it sounds that's easy. What happens is this malaria, Dr. Tu found artemisinin from sweet wormwoods and she was successful. But the fact is, it's not that easy. We can date back to 1970s when the Vietnam War started. During Vietnam War is the war between Vietnam and USA. During the Vietnam War, from 1950s to 1955 to 1975, the soldiers from both parties actually suffered from malaria and these declined the ability of the fights significantly. And at that time, Dr. Tu were appointed by the Chinese government to look for a solution for this. So they started a project 523. Because of this military task, so they don't really reveal the name of the task. They only write the project 523. The most traditional way and most common way to prepare Chinese medicine, even today, how we prepare Chinese medicine for most trip diseases, you can see at the bottom of the slides. From the first image, you're going to open the mixture of the herbs. Afterwards, you put in a pot, you add some water, you bring it to rolling boil, keep for certain duration, such as 10 to 15 minutes, or sometimes even half an hour to 1 hour, depends on the ingredients, also depends on the requirement from the practitioner. And then afterwards, you drink the liquid, you drink the decoction. So that's from the last image, you can see that's the most common herbal medicine that we use today. So Dr. Tu accepted the project 523 in 1969, and artemisinin was discovered or announced officially in 1972. She collected more than 2,000 prescriptions from Chinese medicine that can treat malaria effectively, and the whole team, they eventually select 640 ingredients or herbs, and then from there they select again after 200 herbs from there. So in the end, they focus on sweet wormwood, just in a brief way, in brief words, sweet wormwood. But from the records of the medical texts, it works, but the fact is it doesn't work. So similarly, when Dr. Tu tests in the lab, what she do is she put the herbs and use the vesicle of water and then concentrate to get the ejection from out of the herbs. That doesn't work. She failed. after thousands of times failing, she looked back to the books. So this book, in the middle, 走后救处方, written by Ge Hong. Ge Hong is a Chinese medicine practitioner around 300 AD. 走后, from the name of the books, 走后means 走 means elbow, 后 means behind. So elbow, 后 means behind the elbow. So when you see the image on the right side, the gentleman, you can see that this is a very traditional Chinese dressing. We got a very large sleeve, and in the sleeve there's a pocket on both. There are pockets on both sides. So those pockets you can put items there. So this book named after 走后, which means this is a book you should put behind your elbow, which means you need to carry the books together with you. The reason is because this book describes a lot of techniques, methods for emergency. 救处 means for emergency. 方 means formula and method. So this book is actually one of the first emergency manual in Chinese medicine, as well as in the world. In this book, it describes that sweet wormwood can be used for malaria, but it describes the way how you're going to use these herbs is different. It says you're going to gather the fresh sweet wormwood, the plants, and you're going to make it into meshes, and then you squeeze the juice of sweet wormwood, and then you ask patient to drink the fresh juice. So now you can see that there is some difference between the requirements for normal prescription. That's what I said. You're going to cook the herbal medicine. You're going to you're going to bring to rolling boil and then drink the liquids. And this one, you're going to drink the fresh juice. So what's the difference here? So this may come to Dr. Tu's attention. She thought it might be the temperature difference. So she changed the vesicle to extract sweet wormwood from water to diethyl alcohol. The boiling point is 34.6 degrees. So after changing the vesicle to a low boiling point, she succeeded. That's how the artemisinin was discovered. So as you can see on top, as writes 青蒿素. 青蒿素 is the Chinese name for artemisinin. So from this story, you can see the value of the history, or the value of studying the history, because firstly, you can confirm that Chinese medicine works, and those formula recorded at least thousands of years ago still works today. Secondly, when you know the history, if you experience any difficulties in your practice in future, in your research in future, you will know where to find answers. You may look back to the old texts and find possible answers. So until here, I hope you will understand, or at least have a very brief idea of why it is important to study Chinese medicine, the history of Chinese medicine. This image just illustrates the different modalities of Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine, sometimes also called traditional Chinese medicine. Basically, you can separate into Chinese herbal medicine, acupuncture, massage, and tuina. Tuina is kind of massage. So all of these, we share the same theory, the same diagnostics techniques, but the only difference is instead of using herbs, we use needles or massage. So it's just the approaches are different, including cupping, scraping. So we got different techniques under the category of acupuncture, massage, and tuina. So this is the category of Chinese medicine. In order to have a better understanding of the history of Chinese medicine, because in Chinese medicine we use the term, sometimes we use dynasty. So in order to understand better, have a better understanding of the time or the age of the text, now I'm going to introduce the history of Chinese medicine, the history of China. China, we have more than 5,000 years history. You can see there's one block I highlighted yellow. From here, the reason is because although we have so many dynastics, from Xia dynasty, Shang dynasty, Zhou dynasty, but from here I have to say that we don't have written records for these dynasties. Our written records were dated back, most of them were dated back to Qin dynasty, which was 2,200 years ago. But how do we know we have another 3 dynasties before? That's from the text from Qin dynasty that we still can see today. So we know those dynastics. Also, we unearth many items from those dynastics. But unfortunately, we don't have written records for those. But after Qin dynasty, from 221 BC, and actually slightly earlier than this, a few decades earlier than this, until today, we have written records, we have continuous written records of Chinese medicine practice. Here, from the last one, the People's Republic of China was established in 1949. So this is what we call the New China, established in 1949. This is the key points for the development of Chinese medicine. When we introduce Chinese medicine from the beginning until today, you see the transform of Chinese medicine due to the establishment of the New China. And then from 1912 AD to 1949 AD, the Republic of China. So this is actually Taiwan. From here, you also can see the reason or the debates of the world, the one China or two China debates. So what's the difference? Actually because of the civil war of China. So the Republic of China, or today is in Taiwan, and the New China are the same country. So from here, you can see the image, China, and so for instance, you can see the yellow part, China, and Taiwan is by the coast, the tiny yellow parts. It's one country, but the difference is 2 parties. These 2 parties, when they fight in the civil war, and the Republic of China, the party actually in charge of the entire China, including China mainland and Taiwan, during 1912 to 1949. And afterwards, because they lose the war, they move to Taiwan, and then they claiming that they are still the Republic of China. And then when the new government of New China Community Party take over the power, then we establish the People's Republic of China. That's currently the China we refer to nowadays. But from Qin dynasty until now, the difference between dynasties is actually the imperial families. So when the imperial families, when someone take over the previous family, they change the name of the dynasty. So basically, they are still China. They're still the same Chinese people, the same culture, just different imperial families. From this image, I want to discuss why Chinese medicine is still unique. The reason is from the map you can see there's China on the southeast. On the southeast is an ocean. India, here you got a mountain, one of the highest mountain in the world. in the west, the north, it's really cold and highland. So you can see because of the geography features of China, in the past, it's very difficult for those people to move around. It's very difficult for people outside this continent, the area here, to move into China. Also very difficult to travel through the ocean. So that's what makes the culture unique, because they are very minimal. I can't say no, there were some communications, but very minimal communications. That's how to keep the culture, how to keep Chinese medicine unique. Also, because of China, the entire country had not been colonized. So that's why how to keep the culture, Chinese medicine, unique. The next question I want to discuss is, where does Chinese medicine come from? We're going to introduce in the next video.